From iconic sets to show-stopping action, the studio tour is an iconic and essential part of Universal Hollywood. Likewise, as this masterpiece approaches its 60th anniversary, I figured now would be the perfect time to dive into its rich history and the genius strategies that it employs. To get a better understanding of this ride's history, as well as the park as a whole, we first need to go and take a trip into the past, all the way back to 1914, which was 50 years prior to the ride's opening. You see, around this time, Carl Laemmle, who was one of the co-founders of Universal Pictures, decided he wanted to grow the movie studio. In doing this, he decided to purchase a 230-acre plot of land. This plot of land would one day become Universal Hollywood, a beautiful mixture between a theme park for guests to experience and a fully functioning movie studio. However, back in 1914, it was just the latter, a movie studio, during which, at the time, there were no sound stages. Unlike most studios at this time, Laemmle wanted to switch things up and give guests the opportunity to experience the magic behind movie making. To pull this off, in 1915, a bleacher set was erected, in which for the cost of 25 cents or $8 today, guests would be able to witness real films being produced. This not only allowed for guests to see a peek behind the curtain, but also allowed for the company to make some extra revenue as well. Despite this initial popularity though, things would ultimately need to take a short pause, as in the early 1920s, with the invention of the soundstage, it quickly became the main focus and driving force of the studio. Fast forwarding to the early 1960s, Universal began to experience a dip in their revenue, as a result of changes in the movie industry, including the rise of on-location filming. To help combat this, Universal allowed for a third-party bus company to tour their studio. However, after doing a feasibility study, they decided to end this partnership and make their own, which would open on July 15th of 1964. This 2-hour tour cost guests $2.50, or around $25 today, and took them on a tram tour throughout the movie studio, where they got to witness several different aspects of the movie making process. This included stuff like getting to witness live productions, film sets, different departments like costumes and makeup, as well as getting to watch a stunt show. Unfortunately though, not everything went smoothly throughout its history, as a result of changes in the Screen Actors Guild's rules in 1968, guests were no longer allowed to visit sound stages while production was happening, and as a result of this, plus the continued popularity of the attraction, led to Universal to add more attractions to the attraction, a practice that they still do to this day. Some examples of these additions that were added throughout the years include scenes representing a flash flood, an earthquake, and a runaway train, just to name a few. Like the gradual additions of these attractions, the park itself continued to grow and evolve gradually over time, slowly introducing actual theme park rides and attractions in addition to the studio tour. The first of these big additions was E.T.'s Adventure, which opened in 1991 and was a scenic dark ride in which guests got to help E.T. save the Green Planet. This was then followed shortly after, 2 years later, with Back to the Future The Ride, which was a simulator attraction expanding on the Back to the Future story. One of the biggest draws of the studio tour is the re-rideability aspect of the ride, as due to the ride's nature and vast layout, it is able to be constantly changing up its path to accommodate for different factors. These factors include stuff like maintenance, construction, and live filming. The latter which is another aspect of the re-rideability factor of the ride, as due to the nature of the studio tour being a functioning movie studio, you have the potential to witness live productions in progress. Speaking of this production, it is one of the genius strategies that the ride employs, as it is able to double as an experience for the guests, as well as being able to be used in live productions and movies, whether it be the film sets and backlots to some of the actual attractions used on the studio tour. One of these attractions that has often found itself for this purpose is the flash flood segment of the tour, as not only can the buildings themselves be used for dry filming, they can also utilize the practical effects if needed. Another great benefit of the studio tour is that due to the ride's nature, the whole tour does not need to close if one section of it needs to be blocked off for filming purposes or just scheduled maintenance. This is something that most rides can't really offer, as well as some try to make up for it by providing different beam modes which offer an alternative show scene if the main one isn't working or duplicating the attraction. These backup plans, while great to have, often either hurt the ride experience or cause a reduction in the capacity. Thankfully though, the Studio Tour does not have to deal with either one of these problems. Another area of the ride's capacity that is greatly benefited by the ride is the ride vehicle itself, as unlike most rides which offer a small number of people per row or even ride vehicle, the Studio Tour offers a vast amount of people to be able to fit on one cart, which is then combined with other carts to make up the ride vehicle. In addition to this, if one of these ride vehicles were to break down, Universal is able to more quickly remove it from the path or alternate the ride's path as a whole. As unlike most rides which utilize a track-based system, the Studio Tour does not, and as a result, the vehicles are able to move freely from each other. In addition to this, to further ramp up the capacity, once guests are on board these vehicles, they are on board for a fascinating journey that is also long as well, as a typical journey on this tour lasts around 40 to 60 minutes depending on which attractions are operating on that day. Before driving along to the next segment of the Studio Tour's Genius Strategies, please consider hitting the like and or subscribe button if you like what you've seen so far, as these videos take a long time to make, and doing so is a free way to help support the channel and share it with more people. When it comes to the ride, another aspect where it sets itself apart from others is the fresh nature to it, as unlike most attractions which either become outdated over time or simply less visited due to the fact that they are less new, the Studio Tour is constantly evolving if it wants to, as it can periodically switch out and replace older or less popular segments of the tour with new additions to it. In addition to this not only can be marketed as a new addition to the park, but also helps encourage locals to keep coming back to the resort as well as riding the attraction. Lastly, another area in which the ride excels at is the synergy between the park and the movie media that the company has created, as this not only draws in fans of those properties, but it also encourages guests to potentially be introduced to them for the first time, as well as going to and re-watch them once again. In addition to this, the movie itself can often be used to advertise the parks as well, with the most recent example of this being the Nope addition to the Universal Tramp Tour, as at the end of the Nope movie, it ended with an advertisement informing guests that they can go see this set in real life over at Universal Hollywood. While Carl Lumley never got to witness a tramp tour around the studio that he helped create, the foundations and visions that he laid continue to have a profound impact today, helping create an iconic and integral part of Universal Hollywood that continues to inspire both park guests and producers today, while also underlying several different genius strategies to help make it a theme park masterpiece.